Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. Today doing a focused video on the theme in regard to Alicia, some expired link with Robin Smith and other Noah Presgrove family members, in which Alicia has supposed evidence to do with Kaden Pressy, the phone data, phone pings and timelines which back up the 515 one, as Kaden's retold in his interviews. And if there is an opportunity to present it outwards publicly, or at least towards the victim's family, that should be a good thing. However, it supposedly hasn't happened yet. This is a discussion-based video, meaning any key people and those on the receiving end are free to share their thoughts, defend themselves, add context if necessary, down below in the comment section. I just want to take a look at a particular discussion on one of the Facebook pages to understand it, check the comments, people's responses, acknowledge other people's points of views first, and then I can add on with my thoughts, go to the map itself, analyze once again, highlight the importance of it, because depending how this goes, I did actually make a shocking prediction in the past, and I'll tell you that in just a second, so don't go anywhere. First of all, I want to say welcome to those that are currently here in the live premiere. Make use of the live chat located on the right hand side of the screen, and after watching this video or if you're watching on catch up, let me know your thoughts down below. If you do want to support the channel, down below, pinned message by me, there will be a PayPal link to follow through with. And if you do want to catch up on recent coverage by me on this case in particular, and any of the loose videos in between, you'll be able to find that top right corner where the I symbol is. Click up there. You get the drop down box with the full playlist and some other videos. With that being said, the order of how we'll do things today, I'll share with you briefly my little prediction, what I had made and where it looks like it could be going. And then we'll get into the conversation online and add on from there. So whilst last night the video was done, and there seemed to be a range, a level of activity, I did see a particular comment by Justin Roy saying, you know, you're looking at these screenshots, it might put me in a bad light or put me in awkward situations and other people too. Why not do it for others? Well, my response to Justin Roy in regard to that, to some extent, is you've limited yourself. Because while she may tell me, why am I looking at these screenshots here and there, in reflection upon Justin himself, why am I not doing it towards other people? Is because other people aren't acting out in certain ways publicly, or, you know, the conversations aren't being passed around. There's only so much one can do, correct? And furthermore, when there have been conversations or screenshots which you have had, Justin Roy, you've mentioned, do not share, keep it private, don't cover it whatsoever. And I've followed with that. I stick to those words. So can't have it both ways, can you? With that being said, let me add on to my prediction, what I made in the past. And that was to do with Kaden Pressy, that is there ever a point in time in the future? That's how I worded it months ago. And you can look back at my older videos to see it for yourself. I'm sure there'll be some witnesses that might remember what I said then. And it was to do with, could there possibly be a massive, unfortunate mistake made, a big misunderstanding, but once it goes too far, there's no coming back. And if so far down the line, if you convince yourself enough that with a lie that's the truth, you'll stick with it naturally, brainwashing yourself. Or if you find out there's been mistakes made along the way because you've gone too far down that path, there's no turning back, because it could do yourself in, you could get in trouble, it could harm the case, so you best just roll with whatever you got. I think what's most important at the end of the day is Kaden Pressy does what he can and remembers what he can, and has gone through things like how other people have and have suffered along the way, understandably. Shared his thoughts, what he can remember, but obviously as time goes on and possibly through trauma, it might impact some memory recollections at times. That's why the earlier interviews are the most important. And arguably, I would say the most important interview of 2023, which was never released, never leaked. It would be interesting to see what the contents were mentioned there when it was most fresh. in comparison to the June 2024 police interview, and do a comparison with that. I think that would be very important. The other important factor to highlight is the mother, Alicia Lee, where Kaden's saying it, or Alicia herself, that in the early days, what Kaden had told her, she remembered at a later point at times of when he did not. So feeding back the information, helping him remember stuff. But is there a possibility that one may know more than the other, and the one that doesn't know as much is the one who's the person of interest, as in not officially, but being present at the party? That when words are fed back into someone, it might have a slight different edge perspective to it. If there was a level of care, looking out for one another, but in a slightly unnatural way. Depends how you look at it, of course. Just a little observation question. But the original prediction stands true that could there be a big misunderstanding in some way, and could it apply to Kaden? I roughly mentioned that in the past. Is it unfolding now? Well, at least the questions and the discussions are coming about. But I guess we do need to take a closer look in regard to this whole link situation and Noah's family, because we've not seen them speak publicly yet. No comments on YouTube either. So let's see where it goes and begin. Well, here we are on screen. It's by Andrea Chuparov, 12 hours ago. Reads, it's been said Alicia Lee sent a link to the family of Kaden Pressy's phone analysis, proving that he was on scene at around 5:21 a.m, as in the highway. The link/password didn't work, or something along those lines. Well, other people have said on chat in my videos that it expired, the link. If true, do you think she should resend the link? Why or why not? Do you think that's something the family should have? Let's talk about it. Is a victim's family entitled to this, like, phone records, phone data? I mean, yes and no. The reason why I say that is, has the victim's family received any other phone data, pings, evidence elsewhere from other party goers? Because if not, due to legal reasons, then why should it only apply to Kaden Pressy's side then? All I would say is, in general, if some people were very vocal by stating publicly, we've got the evidence, we can prove it, it'll be all okay, Kaden's correct, you keep pushing that in responding back to the doubters online and the general public. If you are in a position where you can publicly release it, whilst going on about it over and over again, then maybe it should be released to set the record straight, to clear things up, and to put the BS to bed. If you can't release it, but you keep talking on and on and on publicly about having evidence, it's just going to now energize the general public to push more and to question, like poking a fire, and that's it. So in terms of the communication with Alicia and Noah's family, that is supposedly good. That Alicia doesn't have problems with the family. I think Robin Smith doesn't have any issues with Alicia. So it should be working out, but it doesn't seem to be the case. All I would say is, as for a question, where did this all come from? Who heard about it first, and from who, right? Was it witnessed? Was it just talked about in general online? Is it definitely a fact that this did happen to Kaden's phone analysis? And in terms of Noah's family, which Noah Presgrove family members received, or at least the sign-in steps to trying to get it? Was it Noah's mom? Was it Robin? Was it Ashley Chadwick? We'll check the comments anyway, because whether it has happened or not, whether it was successful or not, the theme of it possibly being out there, obviously the main question is, can it be released public? And if not, can it at least be shared with others? I think one argument you could actually put across, and I don't know if others will agree with it, is if Alicia was okay with a Dropbox and it being shared with people in the background to some extent, I think based off how that went with random people in the general public that then backstabbed her and then leaked it publicly, and it all went downhill with Kaden's private police interview, I'm sure if Alicia was to share Kaden's phone analysis with Noah Presgroves' family, in the background at least, I think that would turn out a whole lot better than the Dropbox situation with strangers, don't you think? So it's worth taking in mind. But of course, if Alicia is present, or Kaden Pressy, or anyone in the background, or Robin, you can, if you want to, you can leave your comments down below. If record needs to be set straight, if there's been any updates in between, if an updated video is required, I can do that too. Tim Daniel says, great question. If I was sending something that is a defining piece of evidence that points to foul play, like being at the roadside before the 911 call, you can bet I'd screenshot that, send it to the family first, and then share it publicly in all forums so everyone who didn't believe it would have proof. No links needed, just take a screenshot. Yeah, I guess. What else do we have? Right, I don't even need a link, just screenshot the most important part, text that, or message it. Problem solved, as long as there's enough context provided behind the screenshot. Becca, I heard about the link, but then it didn't work. I think the family has a right to everything. It doesn't make sense if it was sent that it didn't work. Why not resend it to the family or drop it off? Now, maybe there was a malfunction, an error, a glitch, but has it been resent? Who knows? Could it have been done on purpose in like doubling down to say, look, we do have the proof. Here is the access. Oh, but by the way, it doesn't actually work, just so it gives us more time to bide with and do other stuff. Don't know. We've got Brenda. If Alicia Pressy, also known as Alicia Lee, did send Kaden Pressy's phone information to the family, and for whatever reason they couldn't access it, only if doing so doesn't hinder the chain of evidence, why can't she resend or hand deliver it? Has Alicia given this evidence to LE? You'd hope to think that the evidence is in the hands of the LE, at least from the Partners in True Crime Part 2 interview with Alicia, more so, and Kaden Pressy, never released publicly. Alicia did reinforce it about Kaden's phone. It was eventually handed in to police. They got the phone, was it the GeoNet or the GeoFence, and it proved Kaden's timeline to be true. Guess it links to this conversation. Andrea's response. This is what I don't understand. I do think she's playing the long game, but time will run out. I highly doubt she will manufacture anything at this point, as she knows she will get caught. So the runaround, it is. At least that's my thoughts, opinion-based. Michelle Ray Brummett. I agree with Robbie. If law enforcement has it and have said it's okay to share it, then yes, family should be privy to it. I agree. My confusion is normally evidence of this nature collected in an investigation is shared with the victims' families by law enforcement. Why hasn't that happened? Now, obviously this is all about Kaden Pressy. If it had been shared, or it should be shared, should that apply to every other party goer then? I mean, when it comes to Noah Presgroves' family, have they had any access to other party goers besides Kaden Pressy's phone records or phone analysis? Andrea, why did Alicia, agree to send it in the first place? To me, it seems she's giving the runaround. Oh, here's a link. Oh, doesn't work. Now suddenly she comes up with an excuse that she now can't send it. That's highly suspicious to me. Ellie wouldn't need his phone analysis as they have the geofence. They also don't need his phone at all. Robbie, I don't believe specific evidence is usually shared with families by Ellie, only evidence that would be considered benign. Michelle, great question. I myself don't know all the circumstances around it, but it should be answered. Why not? Right, makes sense. I think the exception is with the Dylan Rounds case, which I obviously covered. It was a lot easier there because the actual phone records, the phone pings of where the phone ended up, at what time, to give a story, an idea, to work it out that way in regard to what happened to Dylan, where he ended up, or at least where his phone ended up, kind of links back to the fact it was the victim's family, their son, the victim, died, and it's to do with the victim's phone. So it had everything to do with the victim's family. And communication in the background with police, family getting a hold of the bits of info along the way, and then I guess passing it on to the general public from their words. So yeah, you had to take their word for it. The family may not have been considered good enough at the time, but I went along with it, and it turned out to be true, and for most part of it actually makes sense in the order of how things occurred. So but that was to do with the victim's family and their son, the victim. It wasn't to do with it wasn't as much to do with external people and their phone records, not so much, because at least when it came to the murderer and their phone, the phone records of that were never, or at least for years when I was covering it, were never released public. So there might be limitations in a way. What else? In case I've witnessed, it has been not everything, but most was either shared or with the family was told about it. But has the family told the general public all about it? Maybe not so much. Robbie, as long as it doesn't compromise the investigation, the family has a right to see all evidence, I believe. Of course, if it would hinder justice for her, that would be a different matter, and I'm sure the family would agree. Alicia should either resend the link or personally share the information with the family. Bigger question would be, why was Kaden at the scene at 5:21 when nobody else was present? If we're just saying based off a scenario that it's true that Kaden was there at 5:21, how would we know he's the only one there? Because of course, from Kaden's point of view, he wasn't the only one there. What's come about in recent times to suggest he was all alone? I mean, with the Mikey Lair situation, you could argue and say, well, Mikey couldn't have been there based on that alternative Snapchat post at 5:27 a.m. But were there any Snapchat post of Isaac Rojas or Brylan Sweat at around 5:27? Snapchat photos, videos of them at the party house or not? Because if there was, well, it would really double it down and make more sense with what Robbie is suggesting. Andrea, my thing is, she didn't think it would hinder anything as she was fully willing to send it, but for some reason the link didn't work, so I'm not buying that. It's now going to hinder anything. I agree. Also, if she had no issue sending the link in the first place, why not send it again? Okay, fair enough. Is that the comments there? Well, it is for now. You never know. More responses may come about, but just wanted to acknowledge what was present right now. Let's just head on over to the maps and then I'll give you some of my thoughts. So the project, what I've got loaded up on screen is just mainly to do with the 5:15 timeline, kind of in relation to the June interview with police privately, and then the public one with Partners in True Crime. And we know there's discrepancies. We've gone over it a few times and still it's a little bit of a mess, but maybe there's some times here which we can possibly reach into when giving my thoughts right now. See, the thing is, I think there will be knock-on effects, and that can apply earlier on with the times if they're corrected or just wrong to begin with, false. Anything that comes after that will probably be incorrect too. And if it was later on, anything before that or a separate time later could be put in doubt. See, there's kind of like two timelines with Kaden Pressy in a way. You got the 5:15 timeline from 5:15 being present at the party house, being woken up by Jack, who comes back from the highway to let people know what's up, supposedly. 5:15, 5:21 at the highway itself. 5:30 told to leave by a trucker, returning back to the house with Brylan, Mikey and Isaac, even though with Mikey there was a Snapchat to say he never left the house and was never alert or aware of Noah's death at the time. Obviously it puts into question. And then after 5:30 and getting back to the house, what was the next time stamp? What was the next thing that popped out? Well, it was, 6:30, supposedly. That's the second timeline by Kaden Pressy. like post-death of Noah and the highway situation. But at 6:30, when Renee Millan arrived at the house, and then by 7 in the morning, Kaden told by Renee to leave the house with the guys. And with that particular time frame, from 6:30 to 7 in the morning, obviously Renee Millan and what she said on Facebook in the past doesn't tie in line with Kaden. And with the ODOT, with the highway and the closure of it, or the blockade, that was implemented at around 7:30, 7:40 later on. If Kaden had left at 7 and still had to take the back roads at that time, the highway wouldn't have been closed. So is Kaden out by 30, 40 minutes there? Well, if he is, does that put in doubt his 5:15 timeline that he could be out by 30, 40 minutes as well? Maybe round it up to about an hour. Push on an extra 15 minutes, that'd be around 6:15. This is what I'm getting at. A timeline can have knock-on effects for everything that happens after it. 2 separate timelines of different events, one earlier, another one later, separated, but it could put the other one in question, in doubt. That's what I think, if it comes down to mistakes being made. But I do also feel that when mistakes are made, if you get too deep into it, you might not be able to go back or own up. But there could be a chance that Kaden Pressy genuinely believes it to be 5:15 because that's what he saw, that's what he believes. And if by any unfortunate chance it just wasn't the case, I'm not saying it is, but if it was, and depending how long you go along with it for, was there anybody else around Kaden that would know the actual time but didn't want to tell him because they wanted to protect him? I mean, at the end of the day, if anybody did know the raw time or figured it out just a bit later, instead of rolling with a possible lie, just revealed the truth, got nothing to hide, should be okay. Supposedly Kaden's alibi is going to sleep and then next time waking up is hearing the news of Noah's death. If it wasn't announced at 5:15, but it was announced at 6 in the morning onwards, providing Kaden remained at the party house up until 6 in the morning to hear the news, it wouldn't really incriminate him. So really, even if Kaden genuinely believes in what he sees, saw and experienced, if there's anyone else around him that knows something else but isn't telling Kaden, what's the point? What good does that do? Almost as silly as the accidental situation to some extent in regard to if anyone was tied in with Noah's death and it was an accident, instead of covering it up, because to begin with, you're not responsible for Noah's death, but when you start covering it up, maybe manipulating things, moving the body on, you're incriminating yourself into the case, making yourself a part of it, so you will get in trouble from there on then, and if not, worse. So if you've got nothing to hide in the first place, you've got an alibi, then there shouldn't be any reason to hide, lie, or change things. Or if one can own up in the future, then that should be done so. But equally, in defence, just to balance it out, you can't be like forcing someone to change. If they truly believe in something, you can't force them to change it. But if the actual hard evidence speaks differently and counters the individual, that is what matters. And that's kind of like the discussion of today and in recent time. And it's only come about just recently. I saw it in the live chat on my video, and I've not seen it beforehand. The talk about a link and it being expired and Alicia reaching out to family or family reaching out to Alicia. My question is, why is it only happening now? What about all those previous months of possible communication? Why only now? See, when it came to certain Snapchat posts, like with Mikey Lair, how it counted Kaden Pressy when Kaden said, oh, he was at the highway at 5:21 to 5:30 with Mikey Lair. And yet Mikey Lair was still at the party house from that Snapchat timestamp of 5:27 on the same day and looked really happy, as if they didn't know of the news at that point, that moment. So why would Kaden Pressy know? Why would Kaden Pressy be at the highway, but the others are not? More likely, the majority are happy and not sad and are at the house, and likely Kaden would be as well. Because if Kaden's at the house to find out the news of Noah's death, or if afterwards to be already outside to find the news of Noah's death, you'd think there'd be some kind of alert made to all the others, and that just wasn't the case until maybe later on when it was more officially announced. The only question that I would say is, if it's true, regardless of the time, 5:15 or 6 in the morning onwards, is it truly agreed upon that Jack Newton was the bearer of bad news to the other party goers? Was it definitely guaranteed that Jack Newton was the one that alerted the other party goers? This is what I mean. Put aside the timing, the discrepancies. Focus in at the event at hand. What the event was, who was involved, the actions taken, the reactions. Is there a level of consistency there with what other people are referring to? Because, when it comes to timing, it can differ, of course. But when it comes to an actual event, visualised and experienced by a different set of people and witnesses, did you all see the same thing? Because if you did, then you should all be coming out with the same description, roughly. To say, oh yeah, it was Jack, he's the one that announced the news. And then after that, then can come the discussions and arguments and debates about the timing of it. You get what I'm saying? And at least from what different people have said, Kaden made the reference to Jack coming through the door to announce the news. Carter Combs said the same thing. Jack Newton kind of said the same thing, that he was the one. In terms of his style of breaking the news, it was completely different to how Carter worded it and Kaden Pressy, which was very odd. But the event of Jack being the catalyst in acknowledging what's happened, letting others know at the party, all I would say is, if it's true that Jack made it back to the party house, let people know, and then took off quick because he didn't want to leave his best friend alone on the highway with strangers or no one, how come did Jack have his phone with him? You'd think so. And now on that Reddit page, it was supposedly debunked that the fishing trip wasn't going to happen on that day and it was actually for a different week or a different weekend. But then why would you be talking about it on the Monday and saying, right, we'll meet at the lake, we'll meet at the ramp? Why would you be meeting at the ramp where you're going to go fishing, but actually it's for the next weekend, but you're actually going to go down there on this day when you're not going fishing, but where you're going is where you would fish? What? I don't get that. Can anyone explain that? Was it like a tester, head on down, scout it out, see what it's like, test things? Who knows? But, we're talking about 5:53 in the morning, that conversation text between Jack and Caleb. Jack saying, I've woken up a bit late, or I'm getting ready a bit late, we'll redirect where we'll meet, rendezvous. And Jack getting into his vehicle, probably with his phone as well. You'd think, driving down the highway clueless, and then meeting what was there, getting out, and at that time of 6 in the morning onwards, the highway not closed, but noticing there's something up on site. And then Jack finding out that way. But, that 6:05 in the morning, Jack called his father. Fair enough. It makes sense. Why did Jack then go down to the party house? Or if that is the rough time, if it was to alter Kaden Pressy's. Why would Jack go down to the party house to let people know? Why didn't Jack just call the people instead at the party? Is it because he felt that no one would be awake, so it was easier to go back to the house to alert people that way? Probably. That's the counterpoint that you could argue. In regard to Kaden Pressy, then, they're saying, well, if the 5:15 timeline, 5:21 is true, and Kaden was there earlier at the highway, if he was back then again at a later point, that would put things in major question. But if people are going to put that argument across that Kaden was there twice, and the first time round was before the call, the official call and police, why was Kaden there? Why was he there before police? Why did he not call police? Well, once again, we can say if that's all true, that timeline, the earlier one, and it's true what Kaden says about Jack as well being present and alert, well, Jack was the first to find out. So if Kaden's going to get done or questioned for not calling police earlier on, if present, well, then the same should apply to Jack Newton then from Kaden's timeline, who was actually there beforehand, that Jack should have called if he was there earlier on. What you got to understand is, just based off the 5:15 timestamp, at 5:21, once you get down there, Kaden Pressy with Brylan, Mikey and Isaac, supposedly, I know I mentioned Mikey's name and it doesn't seem possible, I do understand, but I'm just wording it from Kaden's timeline, that's all, just to be consistent when re-quoting what certain people had said. But when that's all going on, you get there, Jack's already on scene, as you know, and then the two truckers, two other members of the general public. When you're late to the party, no pun intended, you probably already assume that action has already been taken. If there's already people on site, witnesses and whatnot, members of the general public, you would already think that they've made the calls to authority, to police, ambulance, firefighters, whatever that's needed. Once you get there late, you don't think, oh, I'll make the call, because you'd be thinking other people already have done so because they were there before me. Now, if you was to stick around longer and you think, well, you know what, time's getting on, we're not seeing or hearing any police, are you sure you made the call? Are you sure that they're coming down? You might question and doubt the situation. You might make the call yourself, and if you did, 911 or, is it 911 or is it 119? I can't remember the US numbers. Oh my God. But you get what I'm talking about, don't you? You make the call yourself and then they say, oh, well, that's not been reported to us at the scene. And you could be like, oh, right. And then it would kick in and make you think, well, there's people already here. They've not taken action. Why is that? But that scenario is just a scenario. It's a shame. See, this is the thing. What my question is, and it's another poll, which I don't actually get round to doing. Bloody hell. But my question is, if Kaden Pressy never left, would the case have been any different? Would the supposed tampering with evidence and that hidden highway footage have actually happened? Would Kaden Pressy have seen anything else? Would some things just never have happened if there was a witness present there from start till finish? And yeah, if Kaden Pressy remained on scene, when told at 5:30 to leave, if Kaden stood his ground and remained, would it have made the case any easier to understand? Would it have altered anything else? What would be another example? Yeah, if you stick around long enough, you might then start questioning why aren't police coming about. If Kaden Pressy remained on scene, based off Tyler Hardy's account, when getting down there about 5:43, 5:46 onwards, when coming on down, and they reported it as, well, we were the first ones there. To their knowledge, at least. They were incorrect, but to their knowledge, they thought it was true. For them to be classifying as the first ones on scene, it would imply that there was nobody else there. So where was Jack then, based off Kaden's timeline at that point? Yeah, that's what I would like to know. If you was to tie in Tyler H's timeline of 5:43 onwards, and they were the first ones there because no one else was visibly present at that time onwards. If that was to tie in with Kaden Pressy's timeline of 5:15, then where was Jack? Because Kaden said at 5:30 left, went back to Party House with Brylan, Mikey and Isaac, and then the girls were still there crying. And then from there on then to 6:30 to 7 in the morning, Kaden did not mention Jack Newton's name ever again, as if for all that length of time Jack Newton was at the highway. And if that really was true, well then surely at least like 15 minutes on after Kaden had left the highway and Jack still being there, that when Tyler Hardy come on down, that Jack should have still been there and Tyler would have acknowledged it. But they didn't. That's a problem itself. So that's how, in a way, you can counter Kaden's timeline based off what Tyler Hardy said, because there are official call logs, official police logs, dispatcher calls, which show the time of when they called. And in the moment of what they saw at the time, no acknowledgement of Jack being present. If Tyler and Tyler H's call logs, dispatcher calls were true, based off what they witnessed, no one there. And if Kaden Pressy's earlier on was true too, then where did Jack get up to in between that then? To avoid the truckers, but to not return back to the house. It doesn't seem as likely. So that's a little issue there. I thought I'd just slip it in, right? I mean, certain things in this case should have been cleared up maybe earlier on and in an easier fashion, like the side-by-side rollover. The side-by-side rollover isn't that big of a deal. Still part of the timeline, but it's not the end-all and be-all. It probably should have been resolved much quicker. 5 to 6 people, okay. That's what Jack said, and not everybody always listens or wants to believe in Jack because of some inconsistencies along the way. I get it. But with like what Robin Smith said a month or two ago, roughly, about Texas boys being cleared, 5 of them. Well, the number 5 rings a bell with Jack saying 5 or so Texas boys as passengers. Not that Jack said Texas boys. I added that in myself. But because you can narrow it down as well. With some events in this case, you might not know who's involved or who was present, but if you at least know who was definitely out for the count at a time, because they were in bed, they were asleep, they were passed out, it's just a process of elimination, who was still awake. That's pretty much it. So if Texas boys were still awake, that's good. But still, besides this whole timeline timestamp, what is a problem? Is Sunday night going into Monday morning when Kaden Pressy said he was resting, not quite asleep, but resting, and he saw 3 guys, Colton Newton, Jack Newton's brother, older one, Travis Monson, and a skinny guy returning back to the party. Now, if that was Sunday, or even if it was Monday, or Colton said in that Snapchat conversation with a stranger online that because he was talking to Jack's girlfriend Carter on the Saturday, he was told off for doing so and was also ordered to not return back to the party the following day. Well, obviously, Colton went against that, and if Colton was there, returning back, as in what Kaden Pressy means was, well, Colton was there Saturday, next time we saw him was Sunday night, Monday morning, when returning back, sneaking along to get alcohol, maybe out of view, out of sight of Jack, so the rules weren't, or the trust wasn't broken, maybe. Does make you think. But there was no timestamp given. And an event like that, you think it's important. If Kaden Pressy can recount other events and recount checking his phone for the time, did Kaden not do that for when Travis, Colton, and a skinny guy returned back to the party house to get alcohol? And then do what exactly? The reason why it's so important to know that time is because does it tie in with the side-by-side rollover timestamp at 2:40, supposedly? Does it tie in line with the 3:30 timestamp of when Noah walked away? Will we ever know? Will we ever find out? It's okay discussing and talking about the links and the phone analysis and how it could be backed up, or maybe it's just time wasting to delay and halt things, doubling down to some extent but not showing the whole thing or much at all because there's no true access to it, but still going through with it meet halfway to say, look, I'm being serious about it, I mean what I say, but you can't have access just yet. You can look, but you can't touch. but more restrictive. Besides all of that, what about the events that don't have timestamps attached to it? That needs to be filled in as well. Maybe it can happen in any order, but I just think that needs to be looked into. And there are certain events which Kaden Pressy has referred to without mentioning times. And maybe when comparing to the private and the public interviews, sometimes were not given, other times were given. Extra details may have been mentioned in the private one, which you would expect with police and not public. But then there were some details in the public interview that were mentioned which weren't mentioned in the private one. Friday to Saturday, 40 people at the party. But I think this one, let's just double check. This will be the Partners in True Crime public timeline. 30 to 40 people on Sunday. Friday to Saturday, 40 party goers. Or Sunday, 30 to 40 party goers. What day? And at least the way Kaden Pressy words it could more so imply that it was like a peak number at one point, the total amount of people present in one go. Whereas like Justin Roy, in and out, coming and going, more interpreted as what Justin Roy is referring to there is kind of like a cumulative total over the course of days, not all at once in a moment. I get that. But yeah, for Kaden to say on Saturday it was close friends only and going into Sunday morning as well. If it's only close friends only, then why was Kaden saying in the Partners in True Crime Part 2 interview that it's the first time he's seen those girls and people at that house and the first time coming on down? Either you know them or you don't, because Kaden did say in his own Part 1 interview with Partners in True Crime that he knew of these people years ago, met in car parking lots, introduced that way, drinking and hanging out. Either you know the people or you don't, and maybe we've questioned it with Carter. Do you know this person or not? Really or not? Not at all. The same questioning can apply to Kaden based off some discrepancies along the way. Was there anything else here which could have an issue? I mean, the Noah Presgroves wrestling Mikey Lair. I know that says Saturday, but that's what Kaden had said himself. But from the looks of it, what most people say, Mikey was there Sunday onwards, not before. 12 p.m, Noah arguing with Jack, right? Yep. Shooting animals on the land across the field, possibly getting in and out of the vehicles, as Alicia suggested, hence why there was grass caught in the shoelaces of Kaden's Hey Dude shoes. Okay, could make sense, fair enough. Cousin arriving, but I don't think the actual time was given in the police interview. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just basing it off my memory. I know in the Partners in True Crime one, about 10:30 p.m. Sunday night when it occurred, and then about 20 minutes later, 10:50, is when Kaden recorded it to show to Alicia that cousin's here, Georgia, she's doing okay and all fine. And then after that, Cav went downhill. These are earlier timestamps, and some of which can be backed up based off the photos and video, the outline, the gallery, the timestamps of that, the raw stuff by Kaden, which is a positive. 2 to 3 in the morning, Jasmine Millan said that Noah walked off. That's a weird one, that, to be honest. Is that implied to be the time of when Noah walked off, never returned back, or that Noah had walked off twice? First time, returned, second time, did not. But why would you be walking away almost back to back? I think that might have been just a very rough estimate at the latest 3 in the morning, but then others say it was 3:30, 30 minutes later when it actually happened. That's the way I interpret it. 2:42 of when Alicia calls Kaden about Georgia either making it back home or more so on the way home. As for how far back home, don't know. 3:20, Kaden assumes that he saw Noah alive, then went back to sleep, and then the 5:15 thing begins. Why is it in that order though? Why is that timestamp in front of the other? I think it must have spazzed out in the past. 5:15. 6:30 question mark, because the actual 6:30 timestamp was not mentioned by Kaden in the police interview, but it was mentioned in the public interview. And maybe there might be times where you reveal more details in a public interview than a private interview, because with a private interview, you got to tell the truth. You got to be more refined, even if it means cutting down a lot of supposed intel. For the matter of truth and consistency, you might cut out times which aren't true or you're not confident with. Hence why what was mentioned in the public interview wasn't mentioned in the police interview a month before, which includes 6:30. And if the actual timestamp wasn't acknowledged in the police interview, then it's up for debate. But the 5:15 one, Kaden does double down with that all over. So he's at least truthful in belief what he feels with that. And it's not changed. But what may have changed is the outlook and perspective from the general public, what they think of. As I said, with certain events in this case, if it's been dragged out or been made into such a Herculean task and it's such a simple event or it's an innocent thing, it becomes more eye-opening in regard to why it needs to be such a struggle. The greater the struggle, is it because it's more important than people think and it actually links more so to the case than others think? But the way to simplify it is, if Kaden Pressy, right, goes to sleep, I mean, put aside 5:15 and onwards. The 5:15 timestamp is obviously in question a lot. The 6:30 timestamp to 7 in the morning of when leaving the party for the last time, that's in question. But dial it back to the time of when Kaden went to sleep. I noticed the discrepancies as well with 2:42, 2:43 to 3 in the morning, to 3 in the morning, to 3:20. When was the call made by Alicia? When did Kaden go back to sleep? Is there any consistency in at least the time of when Kaden went to sleep in the first place? Is there a consensus that Kaden in fact went to sleep at 2 in the morning? Does anyone know? If at least Kaden went to sleep at 2 in the morning and then the next time he physically moved his body and was walking around was at least 5:15 onwards, post news of Noah's death, you think, then that'd be a good enough alibi for Kaden being asleep in between the periods of when whatever happened to Noah and also possibly walking off, maybe. Like, you wouldn't need to worry. Nothing would need to be altered or changed, right? And if a mistake was made, it should be cleared up, clarified as soon as possible. The longer you go with it for, the more complex it can get down the line. Or, if anyone else does know about it but doesn't do much action. What is there to hide? When people, just the community, certain people may be a bit skeptical of Kaden and or Alicia, and if Alicia is protecting Kaden or anything like that, what is going on there? What do you think? And I'll just give you some additional pointers. One pointer which was acknowledged before me was actually from Justin Roy at one point, where he kind of implied that based off the way some of the general public community were acting and treating Alicia and Kaden was as if they felt that Alicia Kaden were tied in with Noah's death firsthand or so. And you could say there's some valid observations there in a way, levels of suspicion. Those who are suspicious of someone may feel that, well, they may know more, they may be involved. But if the timelines are true and behaviour's true, then how could they be involved in the death? I mean, even when it comes down to that messy situation of Alicia, Melissa being at the highway a mile down, which, if that's true, that's pretty near to Noah's body then, I guess. But at what time though? Well, if it was at the latest 3:15, it was supposedly 3:30 when Noah had walked away, and then whatever happened. So even at 3:15, the people wouldn't have seen anything on the highway because Noah wouldn't have even been there at that point. Providing that the 3:30 is completely true and really backed up. That anything that happens before 3:30, likely people aren't going to witness Noah's death or being at the highway. And before 3:30, if you're driving down the highway, passing by the spot of what was later to become the scene in the early part, you're not going to notice anything. So it doesn't really make you much of a person of interest. But from 3:30 onwards, anyone that drives down the highway, you'd look into that and question possibly. But that aside, what I would just highlight is when it comes to the situation with Alicia and Kaden, how Kaden presents himself in the interviews, how he has done, it's been positive. But when this is just an observation, like when it's Kaden Pressy's time to like speak and do his thing, you could see there was a bit of body language, noise in the background from Alicia that was giving him words or reminding him of certain stuff. And maybe if you're doing like a one-on-one interview, you don't want outside interference in a way. But then again, it's not a police interview. With a police interview, it's just Kaden by himself. And partners in true crime, likely there would have been leniency in which Robinson, he would have been like, yeah, of course, Alicia, you can be by the side of Kaden or in the background, no problem. Because it's not a fully formal professional interview, I get that. But of course, through that partners in true crime interview, the part one, there was a lot of jump cuts, jump edits compared to the part two one when it was Alicia doing majority of the talking. So what was cut out of the part one interview with Kaden and why? And I know Kaden seemed visibly upset when it came to talking about the highway, impacted him. Okay, fair enough. But just a bit before that, a bit after that, what was cut out? Anything of interest? Couldn't quite hear what Alicia was getting at because the volume audio was a bit distorted. Obviously, last thing what we saw wasn't that long ago where Alicia made a reference to Jan Fiorillo and Pam Feldman Garrison. Not exactly positive outlooks there. So from that moment, which was a few days ago, Alicia calling out Jan and Pam and supposedly being blocked on the army page, not being able to defend herself with her son Kaden with what's been talked about. Is that the moment the whole thing sparked off with the link and Kaden's phone analysis and when it was talked about, or did it happen actually before that? I mean, we've not seen Robin Smith speak since. I think the last time was probably when we're talking into the possibilities of what Carter Combs experienced at a football match, being supposedly assaulted by Robin Smith, and then Robin Smith gave her side of the story and said none of that ever happened. There was a disagreement. They came to my face and then later walked off, and that was it. After that, we've not really seen much since, but if any areas need to be filled in, these people can do so. If they want in the comments, it can help and go a long way. Any predictions at this moment in time where it'll go next? I mean, if Noah's family remain quiet on the surface level whilst doing whatever in the background, we're not really going to know much. But could there be a bit of a breaking point where certain family members have had enough and then start doing a post responding to the ongoing either rumours or statements of Kaden's phone analysis and a shareable link? Who knows? Has it happened beforehand? Only with that before leading up to the 1 year anniversary where, some people were saying, oh, the family aren't doing enough, they're not caring enough. It was enough to get up some people's backs, hence why Victor Presgroves said what he said. And then Robin Smith added on and a bit by Ashley Chadwick, got a bit heated, of course. So there might be a breaking point at times, and especially during a sensitive, emotional time leading up to the 1 year anniversary, but as in right now when things are still raw, but not as painful as it was in the earlier days with certain events coming up, what would it take now to get a reaction? Because you don't want to be triggering reactions in unnatural ways, but at the same time, you want natural answers. That's why sometimes doing the repetitive coverage and some questions here and there, which I was saying, it's not making any progress, but going round and round in circles at times then does unlock progress. I mean, yeah, I see the odd comment here and there, maybe more so on Facebook, where people say, oh, so much time's passed on, still no leads, still no progression, still no follow-up, not going anywhere. And I think that's kind of ignorant, because when you look back on my channel with what I've covered previously, it wasn't that long ago when we looked at what Kaden Pressy had to say in regard to squashing rumours about it being started online, that Noah did try reaching out to his father at the time of the party for a ride home, and Victor said never happened. That's pretty much breaking news in a way. A Presgrove family member, the father, speaking out. And that's more so in recent time, in which, to be honest, it could have been mentioned in the past, but I guess it didn't reach around to people's attention back then. The other one being the Mikey Lair Snapchat. 2 lots, one from different angles, one clearer than the other, showing that Mikey was awake at the time as well at 5:27 and happy with Jasmine and Logan Jernigan. And then later, the other Snapchat coming out in regard to earlier on in the day of 4:30, but just tying in with, was it Carter and Logan? Just things like that, additional details, because you think after all this time that's passed by, if there are any new photos, videos that do come out, that's actually really important and significant, because the delay in between, there's got to be a reason for it, a level of importance, that at later points when photos, videos of the party itself are released, then more than likely those things were a part or treated a part of the timeline leading up to Noah's death. Because if they're not, they should have been released all at the start. So that's one way to take it there. So if anything else comes out later, got to treat it with a level of importance and look into it deeper. So I think we'll leave it there for now. Hopefully that's clear enough. Just wanted to do a bit of a small video discussion based in regard to the Alicia Noah Presgroves family situation. If it leads to any additional replies, that's obviously a good thing. And yeah, it's talked about on Facebook and people say what they say, but it needs to be talked about as well on other platforms to spread the awareness. So as a disclaimer, with that being said, that's it for now. But in terms of other areas, we'll just briefly acknowledge to some extent. So right now, as you can see, there are no big objects. There's no big black objects about me, as seen in last night's video. And you might be wondering why. Well, it's just because I don't have it at this moment in time. Unfortunately, Rebecca Gagliari has taken my giant vibrator hostage because they took a liking to it. It does the job for them. Now, hopefully it doesn't get too wet, no electronical shocks there, because that would be unfortunate. But Rebecca did say that due to the sheer size, mass and volume of that giant vibrator, the ribbed feel on the edges, on sides, it works quite well with them. It's very compatible. That's great to know. And the intensity behind it, leaving them shaking for hours. But hopefully in terms of the deep muscle tissue, it specifically does the job. But something tells me that Rebecca is using it for other reasons. But speaking of anybody else, oh yeah, Sharon, yes. So, you know, with certain tools and items missing, as you know, can I borrow your vibrating device, Sharon? No? No? Why? Haha, oh yeah, because you're going to use it on me yourself. Of course, how could I forget? But that aside, when it comes to Beauty Gurumo, also known as Baddie Gurumo, or Beauty 50 Shades of Gurumo, or Beauty I Am Groot Rumo, so many customizable names there, endless. Just like tossing those shoes all over the place. I need to mention about Joyce Burgow. Sorry about that, Beauty Gurumo. Got to hold the phone for a second, because Joyce Burgow, don't understand the serious professional steps that she takes when it comes to those cornhole competitions, okay? You just think it's simply standing there, tossing a few items here and there into holes. Yes, Joyce Burgow may know a thing or two about filling holes, but there's more to it than what meets the eye. that Joyce Burgow is the only one to wear safety goggles in the tournament, the only one to wear knee braces, knee pads, and a neck rester as well. Full protective body gear and even a helmet as well. All about health and safety. I don't know why. It's probably because, you know, if you're tossing bean bags and any other things about any balls, you don't want them whacking your head. It could give you a bit of a concussion or a coma. We don't want that, man. Burgow has it under control. But in regards to Beauty Gurumo, we have some slight issues there. Oh my God, stop. And it's to do with the lipstick. And what that basically means is it needs fixing, because whilst Beauty Gurumo is obviously busy doing a lot of stuff, if applying any makeup or anything in between, if it's not quite working, it's going to slow them down. Can't have that. Beauty Gurumo did say that she needed a one-on-one consultation with Dr. Raff, and Dr. Raff has gone a bit south in terms of visual appearance, but oh my God, it's just a part of the appeal, yeah. So she'll be able to connect better this time round. So, you know, Beauty Gurumo, step on in, take a seat. So what appears to not be working or functioning? The lipstick. Oh my God, how could that be possible? Because it does not raise up, it does not pop up when you twist or turn. Well, we'll loosen it and fix it. I can fix it. See, the thing is, with my type of lipstick, because obviously people like to accuse me of wearing it, you know, how do I apply my lipstick? Well, just a standard version. I get the stick and I wipe it all around me just like that. Very innocent, of course. And with some kitty cat claws forming. Damn right, got to protect myself. Anyway, this is how it's fixed. Don't worry, no Texas boys in sight. Not from what I know of. No Texas individuals in this room. You're all safe. Just in context, it's just me about. Though, questionably, there does appear to be a horse in the background riding a lion. I mean, has anyone ever seen that before? A horse riding a lion? Who knows? But last but not least, Beauty Gurumo, don't you worry. It's going to be fine. Bless your cotton socks. Yeah. Okay. Hold the lipstick close. Do not let go. Okay? I'm tapping into the lipstick to loosen it up if it's a bit stiff. Okay? Yeah. From there. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And of course, last but not least, the underarm as well. Yeah, is that good enough, Beauty Gurumo? Yeah. See, be careful, Beauty, with that lipstick. Because besides that, yes, I did hear that you got a little wet yesterday. Oh my God, Beauty Gurumo, you should have had a towel. But don't worry. I don't know what Beauty Gurumo spilled on her. Was it tea? Oh my God, Beauty Gurumo, don't be spilling tea on yourself. If you spill tea, all the drama channels are going to take up on that. Oh my God, stop that right now. It could have been water. It could have been juice. But, you know, Beauty Gurumo, don't worry. We'll find some spare clothes somewhere. Actually, Beauty Gurumo, you can borrow some of Sharon's because, you know, Sharon has many clothes as well, of course, because she gets wet too. And, you know, when strawberries get wet, they start to shake and we can't have shaking strawberries. No. So I think it's been quite a productive time today. A lot of things looked into. So my name's Warlike Raff. If you did like the video, feel free to share and hit the thumbs up. That'd be appreciated. For now, that's it. Goodbye and good night.